For more, you guys ready for doctors that help with our four-legged, and I guess there's also some two-legged animals, but as I was telling you before, there are a lot of people who will spend more money on their pets than they will on themselves. And when people really need help with their pets, the next doctor that you're going to hear is absolutely incredible. And it would take me too long to tell you all of his accolades, but one that I do recall, when the U.S. government has a bomb-sniffing dog that comes back from one of the wars, and they have problems, and they need to bring in a consultant, Dr. Tim Crowe is the go-to guy. So really help me with a lot of applause to bring him. He is the star of Pets Love It, Vets Love It. You guys are going to love him. He came all the way in from Bogart, Georgia, and he will fill you in on what he does, and Dr. Tim Crowe.
Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out?
When we started, I got a lot to cover. We got so much, and there is a lot to this area thing. We call it Kangen Water. What is that? About maybe 2.5 years ago, I got introduced to it, and it took me a while to just go, hey, what is this water? And as a veterinarian, I had a chiropractic friend of mine just spend time with me and show me what it was, and I go, this is more than I've got to really search into this. And so a lot like my friend Tim McKnight, we had to really dig into it to see where he needed to go. Same thing with me. I really had to. And as it turns out, I have got friends in other places that are like, for example, a biophysicist who's been on the water for a while, and he said, this is really powerful. And I said, really, is it, Jeff? Is it really? Why is it so powerful? He says, it is also restructured in many, many ways. It's quantum physics based. And I'm just kind of off the cuff here saying that one of the things is it does that we really don't truly understand yet. It's just like there's a lot more that's going to happen in the next few years with it. I don't know what happened to the slide, so I'll just go ahead and maybe think about just starting out. I introduce myself. I'm a veterinarian who's been in practice for a long time. In fact, there's my horse. Her name is Babe. And I spent some time in Nevada and working in different places. And there's my old horse, Joe. He about ready to kill me. They were as well save my life. He did both. And so I come with a harmonica because that's what often I did. I was out in the countryside and working cattle, and we'd be together out there. And it's still a life today. And if I could have made a living probably just doing that as a cowboy, that's probably what I'd still be doing. Now, there are lots of things that are going on in veterinary medicine. And cattle, for example, I just heard the story about some cattle with coccidiosis at the lunch table, and that one of the gals was telling me about that the cattle with coccidiosis were getting well without antibiotics. That's amazing. Or with dairy cattle that are getting maybe about 20 to 30 times more, 40 to 30% more milk production with their Kangen water. Now that's a lot of cattle, and that's a lot of milk that they're producing, and that's probably way better milk as well. Those are wild horses that you see there, and that they spend, of course, all their time out there. And think about it. They've got the earth, and they got the sky, and of course they got water, and they know where the water is. It's the best water for them. And so this is a little talk about electrolyzed water for pets. We're not going to get really into much on the horses or the cattle, but just to think about this, we're all animals in a way, aren't we? Okay? We all use the same physiology. I'm with the Institute of Health Management and Mass Destruction Defense with College of Public Health, University of Georgia, and the Chief of Surgery and Critical Care at the Regional Institute of Veterinary Emergencies and Referrals in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then I have another position where I'm a medical director of hyperbaric oxygen. So here we are in flooding patients with oxygen because you have more superoxide radicals produced if you are not oxygenating well. And remember, Tim earlier said you've got to exercise. It is so important, and our pets need to exercise. And even if they're critically ill or injured, and I take care of a lot of those, we have them do range of motion exercises, we get them up, we move them around, we do all we can to make their cardiovascular system healthy, and of course circulate, if you will, Kangen Water. And I'm also working with as a captain with my fire service, and I've been with I'm a volunteer fireman for 22 years. And thank you. Yeah. So it all starts, just go way back. Let's start with Genesis. Genesis 1:3. God said, "Let there be light." Well, it's not just light that you can visually see. It's all the electromagnetic spectrum. And even the electricity that is being actually put into your Kangen water machine, think about it. It's electrons. What's light? Light is a photonic electromagnetic system. And that, whether it be sunsets or sunrises and the light you can see, or it's all the light in the electromagnetic spectrum. And a fellow won the Nobel Prize in Physics. His name was Carl Rubia. And he showed that the body is more light than solid matter by 1,000,000,000 to 1. It's because we are more light, truly, than we are. If you just take an atom, and let's just say this is an atom, well, it wouldn't be like that. If a grain of sand is the very tip or the very point of the center of that atom, let's call it the nucleus, there's one proton, let's say it's hydrogen, and there's one electron in that whole entire atom, right? Hydrogen. You know that the size of that whole shell for that atom would be the size, and again, the grain of sand is just the tip, just the nucleus, would be the entire University of Cambridge. What is all inside the cell, inside the atom, is all this electromagnetic spectrum moving around all over the place, quanta. And that's why. Let's look at this water. Okay, God then made water and sky on the second day. And we know a little bit about how the most powerful thing that we can drink, of course, is that Kangen water. It's the sky and the relationship with oxygen. So without oxygen, we wouldn't last very long, would we? Without water is the second thing we wouldn't last very long with. And then earth and plants, and then of course animals on the fifth day, we didn't come until the sixth. But guess what? We are on this earth to do the best we can, and the earth is 71% surface water. And of that, 69% is fresh water, is ice. And if the ice would all melt, the entire earth would be covered in about 2.7 kilometers high with surface. Would be covered. It's an amazing place we live. And the cumulus cloud, just so you kind of know, this is important because it's water. We all know about water. One cumulus cloud that's about 1 kilometer in cubic kilometer weighs 2.21 billion pounds. Think about it. Yet it's floating out there. So there's been a lot of investigations looking involving water. And then recently water, as you know, makes between 65 and 85% of the animal's body and our bodies. And Gerald Pollack, who's an investigator in Washington, he spent 10 years looking at muscle, and he found out that water-associated structures and molecules make up 99% of the muscle. 99%. Not just the 70, but if it's water interrelated with all the other structural elements within the muscle, 99%. And cell water is not just like real bulk water. It's not like the water we have. It's water that's very special, as we call it, hydrogel. It's in our cells, and it's crystalline water. It transfers light and proteins and electrons 40 times faster, and it's arranged in sheets. And we talk about, when we were in school, we talked about enzymes, and we talked about substrates, right? Well, there's not a substrate and an enzyme that actually come together. Yeah, like we thought. Like we probably had in science class. No, there's the sheets of water, at least about 10 sheets of water between the enzyme and the substrate. And that's because of the protection for that protein. Otherwise, if there would be a large conglomeration of mixture, then that protein would go away. It's to help prevent that protein from going away. And then, so how does the enzyme, work with the substrate? It's all light-based. And as fast as the speed of light, or even faster, depending on who you're reading, on a quantum physics-based, It's light-based. So that water that we're putting into our system, the alkaline water, is also been, I'm going to call it the word energized just for the sake of it, but it is a different kind of water than you would otherwise drink. And we all know that. The molecular water then moves through things called water channels. So if you're drinking the hydrogen water-based water, that's an aquapore. You see that aquapore is just an artist's conception of what an aquapore looks like. An aquaporin is a plant, if you will, of proteins, and the water goes through there at the top of that aquaporin, which is the top of all the cells. To get this water into the cells at a very fast rate, it has to go through that little, I'll call it a funnel. And at the top of the funnel, on the surface of the cell, is where the water is the size of Kangen water. It's very special in that it is that size. It's got those 6 molecules together. So I learned a little bit about hydration as a working as a fireman. Now that's me on the left over there in the picture, and then me on the right there. Essentially, here is where I'm all done with a fire, and yet, of course, I got a bottle of water in my hand, okay? So that's a little dated. I don't do that with bottled water anymore. I always drive, and I have it in the truck, and I have with all my fire guys that I work in fires with, they're all on water, and most of them are trying to get it into Kangen water. We had one fire just not long ago that involved one firefighter who went in pretty much probably dehydrated when he went into the fire, and he came out. We had a couple of my buddy medics were there working on him, put an IV and started him on fluids, and I ran over to the truck and got some Kangen water out, and he started drinking it. Within minutes, he was now alert and oriented and said, well, I'm going to go back in that fire. No, actually, we couldn't let him, of course. But the idea is that hydration can you can drive your hydration, you're on a lot of adrenaline when you're going into one of those fires like that, okay? And of course, oxygenation, like there's a picture of them giving a patient oxygen with an ambu bag or a resuscitating bag. And we can't think about it. If you're not getting the oxygen you need, you may fall asleep quicker. Please do this. Drink before you get in the car and drive. I can't tell you how many times, that's me in the upper or right corner walking towards that car that was crumpled up around a tree. It is really important to stay hydrated. Drink the water before you get in that car. Now that includes then all the pets. So here I am getting into the pet side. Caring for sick and injured pets is what we do 24/7, and this is the Regional Institute of Veterinary Emergencies and Referrals in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we're spending time and effort and all kinds of people's let's say, they really, really care for their pets, as Stan said. And I really thank Stan for having me be here, because it is true that the pet really is so important to that animal, to the owner. Look, in the biophysics side, to the pets and owners, I wish I had a dime for every time I told the owner, look, your pet's got, let's say, severe colon disease. She'll look at me and say, I have it. You're literally talking back and forth with each other, and you're sending signals back and forth. You may not know this, but you are. You often share the same diseases. How many have ever heard of this or have some kind of feeling about that? Yes, that happens. So this is Maggie. Now this is dog Maggie here, and she has a problem with her knee, and that's an electromagnetic signal device that's on her knee. It helps put let's say, most of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories to shame. It's better for pain than it is the typical non-steroidals like ibuprofen, etc., which I have a lot of toxicity effects. This has been used, that little loop has been used on over 10,000 people. And the reason that we hydrate these guys is because then the electromagnetic signals are going to work on the cells so much better. Isn't she cute? Both of them are cute, aren't they? Yeah. So human cells and pet cells have the same physiology. So when you're talking to your veterinarians and you're talking to anybody who's got a pet, you tell them, look, it's the same kind of thing. It happens to Ken. So there are about 10 trillion cells in our body, or a dog or a cat, or a horse's body, for every 10 kilograms of body weight. So the average 70-kilo man would have 70 trillion cells. Do you know that every time you look at it, maybe a picture of galaxy, the galaxy is 70 trillion stars. That tells you about how many cells we have. There's 1 million molecular changes that occur per second. 1 million molecular changes per cell per second. Too fast, by far, than just simple biochemistry alone. Oxygen is, of course, electron-driven, as well we could not live without our oxygen, yet we do not do it well. So we're thinking of ourselves as a furnace, and our animals as a furnace. It's just making smoke when it's not oxidizing like it should. Tremendous good. You have a blue flame if you were just doing the best, but you got a little bit of extra kind of a smoke. And the same thing with our dogs and our cats. Because of the lack of oxygen, we get these things called reactive oxygen species, and it's an anaerobic environment. And then we get the acidosis and the inflammation, and our dogs and our cats do it the same way. We get dehydration, lose blood flow, we get problems with the microcirculation, the tiny little cells, capillaries, and with the macrocirculation, the smaller, larger ones, and with platelets, and the white cell gets activated, and there's some mitochondria without enough oxygen, and those mitochondria are getting big. They're getting swollen. They have more electromagnetic loss, and they can't hold together as well. And aging and toxicity and cancer, they occur certainly, but in pets, 7 to 10 times faster. Why? Because they have 7 to 10 times faster the metabolism. And in some, so if our pets are sentinel disease for us. We, you know, a good example. An example is mammary cancer. 10 times more mammary cancer in dogs than there is in humans. Probably didn't know that, did you? So hexonyl water, which is what, again, we're looking at, this is like Kangen water. It's a form of a structural background with DNA, the liquid crystalline hydrogen-based gel water. The only structured water of this type passes through double cell layers, you know, which is a lot of lipid in between, and it's protein, lipid, protein, and it's through these water channels in which this hydrogel, the hexonyl water goes through. And so it's funnel shaped, and then so these aquaporin channels were discovered and got won a Nobel Prize, Peter G, back in 2003 for looking at this and finding this. And if we look at the body that achieves this conditioning, we drink in, if we just drink in bulk water, there is some research to show that the bulk water actually changes, electrolyzes the water, and turns into a hydrogel-like water, just like Kangen water. So it's like making that a step we don't need. Just watch this video for a minute. Now that is a DNA structure, and it's being made at 25 million of those a second. 25 million DNA structures are made every second. And of course that's part of the cellular process for duplication. And what holds those little curlicule helix apart is actually hydrogel water. It's the structural bonding between that keeps that helical DNA in for shape, and also in the proteins and everything that's going on. And it's light-based because that's just what we know. So it is a very, that is the protein matrix while it's manufacturing it. Just watch for a moment. I'm going to shut up. It's so brilliant when it first comes and be made. That's from the Hughes Institute where they took all these X-ray diffractions and glued them all together and made that video. Isn't that powerful? Next slide. Okay. So also noted, here's a cell that's being divided. It's going to divide, and of course it's surrounded. If you notice, you'll see this cell has a little bit of a structural around it looks kind of dark, and that is probably again the deeper viscous type of water. And watch what happens. And these again, 25 million occur with mitosis every second. And that's our cell membrane. The cell membrane is just kind of bubbling all the time, using energy. And the dark ring around it potentially is part of that X-ray diffraction with a system going on. Okay. So the alkaline water, of course, is a pH of 8.5, we know that, to 11. And just want to remind everybody what that is that every time you go from 8.5 to 9.5 to 10.5 and 11.5, that you're going up by a factor of 10 each time. So that 9 water, for example, is 100 times more than, as far as the pH with hydrogen ions, more than 8. 100 times. Okay? And it's really nanoparticle-based platinum, or ORME, overly arranged monatomic elements, is really what's part of this whole machine that we call as Kangen Water machine. And the ORME is, again, orbitally rearranged. Why platinum? Platinum has this ability. I won't go into the physics behind it because I don't have the time. But just think about it as the stabilizing structure associated with the electrons and the electron structuring that's occurring. And then you get the electromagnetic transmission and resonation, and that media is the water that's put into that. So the biophysics again, that James Clegg proved that all living proteins and chromosomes have a layer of energized, say, bound water, coating its surfaces, measuring around 10 molecules thick. This water coating participates in at least 4,000 enzyme reactions that they looked at. And these react with the substrate. Again, nothing really touches. It's back and forth. And this resonation, this quasi-crystalline hydrogel is between those two. Pets, water consumption, let's look at that. Pets really, they smell the chlorinated water. They don't like it. They also, it's got a reservation. The water that's chlorinated also has a reservation, and it's a vibration that is not good. And if you take chlorine and drink chlorinated water, you'll produce a toxic substance called trichlormethane. Doesn't even sound good, does it? So our animals, you just look at it and smell it and go, I don't want that anymore. Give me the drinking water. So the trichlormethane, one of its sister products, is chloroform. So if you have a fuzzy head, you know, it might be the chloroform that you're actually manufacturing through the chlorine processed tap water. And so, of course, the dogs and cats don't like it, so they get mildly dehydrated. And what also happens is that it leads to less blood flow. And that leads to less oxygenation. That leads to chronic cell changes. That leads to mild increases in reactive oxygen species. But it's cumulative. And then, of course, we have, for example, dehydration may happen in disc disease, for example. We get dogs with a lot of disc disease. And it's because they are not staying hydrated. And so the disc actually gets degenerative, it gets inflammatory, and then we see in dachshunds and other dogs very commonly get disc ruptures. And that happens to be a CT of a dog with a ruptured disc. At the bottom there is that bigger, whiter structure, and that is the, let me see if I can point with this. See if it'll work out. Okay, that is the disc that's ruptured, and this right here is the cord itself, and this is space between them full of edema. So it leads to inflammatory cascades. You get back in joint inflammation, you get degenerative changes, you get in the tissues, more rapid aging, inflammatory associated weight gain, inflammatory associated weight gain. I'm going to say it again. Inflammatory associated weight gain. So it's just, our pets are part of it, and I see so many animals that are overweight. It increases cancer, the incidence goes up skyrocket, and it increases the disc disease and even rupture. So here's, for example, that disc rupture. So this is Samson. He's just giving an example. He's 5 years old. He's a little male Bashinji, and he's obese. He's got abdominal pain, which then progresses to back pain, which is hard to tell in the order for a song, and he arrives paralyzed. And this is to show the disc again and where it's ruptured. And the kind of surgery we're going to do on this guy is it's too late for the water to make him better right now. He's got a big, large wad of disc material within that, and he's got to have that disc removed, and so that's what all that surgery is. So In the surgery that we're doing, we try to always think, what can we do better to make these patients better post-operatively, and even hydrate even during the surgical process. So we'll give them this little trickle of water just before they go in there. And it gets absorbed how fast? Very quickly. Post-operative recovery then, if we stay them hydrated, we give them nutrition, give them the pain relief, and because it's anti-inflammatory, it's a very good, so we use electrolytes, reduced water. And here's Samson a few days later, it's like 3 or 4 days later, he's already starting to walk. His owner is so excited, and guess what, there's a little machine right there on the counter, you see it? What is that little machine? You guys know what that is? Hey, it's a Kangen Water machine. So he's going to be on the water, and the little guy is going to go home on the water. He's not very little anymore, but he is lost in a disc, and he goes on to be able to be happy. His owner's on the Kangen Water, his dog's on the Kangen Water. I'm a happy surgeon, and of course we go on from there. Okay, yeah, that's it. So he made a complete recovery, and he's very happy, and he's, of course, he's on the 9.5 water, and his owner's on 9.5, and the entire family, including children and grandchildren, are on that water. All because of Samson ruptured his disc. And by the way, he's a lot less in weight now, by the way, too. Okay? I don't know if you see that, it's kind of a far away shot here, but this is general guidelines. Start with about 8.5 water on your pets. Place in a glass or ceramic bowl. Do not use water do not use plastic water bowls, and do not use stainless steel bowls. The stainless steel they get all the signals from our light, right? And a lot of us have fluorescent lights. It reverberates in that water, and it's not good. It's like a radar dish with bad electromagnetic radiation. How many of you have a cell phone? Do you know how serious it is to have a cell phone in your pocket? Yeah. Don't sleep anywhere near it. And dogs and cats go, wow, they're smarter than we are. They get away from that thing. All right? If you want to do a little test, you put the cell phone right here, and you have somebody muscle test you and see how strong you are. First of all, just see how strong you are by pushing, and then put your cell phone right here. You'll have 20 to 30% less energy to resist just from that cell phone. It's microwave. So if you have a dog bowl full of Kangen water, don't put it in a stainless steel bowl. It's either glass or ceramic. Okay? Then you change that pH about once a week to 9 to 9.5, and you can stay right there. If they have cancer or severe inflammatory disease, or they're recovering, we slip them some 11.5, and we usually give them about 1 ounce of 11.5 for about 10 kilograms of body weight, and that's on a daily basis. Okay? That adds what? The hydrogen-based electrons. That's what it does. Peggy Parker, by the way, she has some other information too that she can just share with you, but the bottom line is you may want to just put all 3 bottle bowls down, and you can find out which the pet likes right away. You can go to that. What it means is probably if you get too quick, too fast, our biggest thing we see is diarrhea. Anybody speak to that? Okay, you're detoxing there too quickly. So start them out slow and just build up. Okay? The reactive oxidant species is due to poor tissue oxidation, and if you are jumping them to 9.5 sometimes, you're actually dumping out inflammatory cascading materials, cytokines, and that's helping them get the diarrhea. Additional, you get electrons that are forming in electrolyzed reduced water, and of course there's a higher in pH, and you want to move gently from that to about 100 times more electrons per mil of that water. And then is a combined of the reactive action species to neutralize, and so it's not as, you want to see that also do that gently. Okay. So this is Milton. Milton is 20 years old, and he started on Kangen Water, and he was around 18 and a half. He was chronic renal failure. He had chronic kidney disease, in other words, and he was getting subcutaneous fluids 3 times a week. And then she came to me. We put him on Kangen Water, and we also used some electromagnetic resonance type of energy medicine with him, and that really helps too. But the basic bottom line, he went from 3 times a week needing sub-Q fluids just to keep him hydrated to 0. All he was doing was drinking his water. Okay. Mammary gland cancer, prostate cancer, degenerative joint disease, asthma, pneumonia, heart disease, you just name it. The autoimmune hemolytic anemias, the red cells just don't work well. Degenerative, basically disc disease, like we just mentioned, of course, with Samson. All of these animals seem to very respondibly to the hydrogen-based water. Post-trauma, this is one dog who's got cancer. He's got a bone cancer. It's very severe. But his bone cancer is helping arrest because it's not inflammatory. He's oxygenating better. Cancer cells don't like oxygen as well. In fact, there's research to show that if you can oxygenate something better, you're going to get less cancer growth. So he's been around with us for now over half a year with his osteosarcoma. It's a bad bone tumor. And it's very severely painful. Well, it was. It's not as painful now because he's got a, quote, anti-inflammatory, and that is the water. We see that with snake bites, we see it with bite wounds, burn wounds, everything. And of course the burn wounds will use the 2.5 water to help kill the bacteria on the burn wound. All kinds of wounds. Of course, osteomyelitis or infections in the bone. If you have post-dental disease or dental surgery, you use the 2.5 for that. And oxidized, electrolyzed water is also a virucide. It's a bactericide, a fungicide. It's used for irrigation, used for general cleaning, used, of course, in dentistry, as I mentioned, for oral, and it's used on burn wounds, and it's used for traumatic wounds, and used on infected wounds. Revolutionizing. So how do you convince your veterinarians when you guys are going out there to talk to your vet to get this? Okay, I'm going to just give you a couple of suggestions. Okay, first of all, look up the scientific articles yourself. Go to PubMed.gov, and write, you get some of the articles, pull them up on your screen, and then print them up. Put the subject heading is electrolyzed reduced water. Electrolyzed reduced water. Next thing, look up electrolyzed oxidized water. You're going to pick up two different kinds of articles. Okay? The reduced water, which is the electrolyzed reduced water, is the alkaline water. And the electrolyzed oxidized water is the acid water. It's just the scientific jargon that you need to know when you're going to PubMed.gov. Or printing, world printing, if you will, with how many thousands and thousands and thousands of articles are scientific based. Print these articles and make copies, and then take a yellow highlighter and highlight Kangen Water, or not going to be saying Kangen, by the way, it'll say electrolyzed reduced water is a tremendously good antioxidant. Give these copies to your veterinarian and give them to the techs as well. Veterinarian may not listen, but he can listen to his techs. He'll listen to his staff. And he'll say, hey doc, did you read that article that the gal from the Kangen machine case brought over? Did you see how important it is in cancer? In cancer? Oh, I didn't read that. Let me go look and look. Okay. And then, of course, discuss the work briefly if you can. Look like, take her through several of them and take along and say, I'm going to stop by next week. I'll pull up some more of those articles for you. Okay, the scientific article example, I'll just give you one. Here's this is out of Biomed Center. This is a neuroprotective effects of electrolyzed reduced water. It's model water containing molecular hydrogen and of course that's platinum-based nanoparticles. And that was published by this guy at the graduate school, and this is in Fukuoka, Japan. Beautiful area in Fukuoka. Anyway, they've got a lot of stuff going on that's science-related. The experiment was they tested neural cells from a mouse under oxidative stress. So and again, these neural cells are not the animal itself. It's looking at the cellular injury that's occurred by oxygen and the neural protection that you see. So they said that electrolyzed reduced water scavenges all the intracellular ROS, or reactive oxygen species, and prevented the decrease in mitochondrial membrane potential and ATP production induced by the ROS, or the reactive oxygen species. Then the neuroprotective effect of the molecular hydrogen and the platinum nanoparticle base showed that both contribute to the neuroprotection by the electrolyzed reduced water. Powerful statement to a veterinarian who's never had a clue about this stuff. I'm one of those guys. I needed to hear it. I need to see it. And here, this brain is the big. It goes on. You could give them the rest of the article and say, Look at this. The brain is the biggest energy-consuming structure in the body. Although it represents only 2% of the body weight, it receives 20% of all the total oxygen consumed and 25% of all the glucose utilization. For that reason, the brain is considered one of the most vulnerable, and this includes pets now, that also get degenerative diseases of the brain. Against reactive oxygen species, a byproduct of aerobic metabolism when it's not working right. Oxidative stress, then, is directly related to a series of brain dysfunction diseases. And in people, of course, it's Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, etc. And the electrolyte reduced water is functionally different than regular drinking water. It contains, again, the molecular hydrogen, and it's protected also with the platinum nanoparticles that make it support. And so it's, and then give them more references. You want some more? How about a whole bunch? Like lots. Like, how many would you like, Doc? How about like 10? Let's go over the yellow highlighter. Here's many hydration states. This is out of the American Journal of College of Nutrition, where it says that dehydration linked to many cardiovascular diseases: atherosclerosis, hypertension, renal disease, cystic fibrosis, stroke, etc., etc. God, your doctor, your veterinarian is going to say, I didn't know that. I better start drinking this stuff myself. Okay? And then the anti-cancer activity. Here's an anti-cancer one that was, again, inhibits the growth of human tongue carcinoma cells with electrolyzed reduced water. How many have heard this before? Of course, you guys are on the edge of it, and you're going to help the medical, veterinary, dental, all professions to help bring this out and show the science that is there. And here's another article: the enhanced induction of mitochondrial damage, which is cellular death, of human leukemia cells. If the patient, quote, has leukemia, and you get them on the water, they're going to do better because of what it does with it. Okay? And then here's another one. Here's a biological safety of hydrogen, and they looked at how much hydrogen would you give a rat. Okay? And now this is a pet. How many have pet rats? They can be pets as well. Yes, they can. Cute little guys. All right? Don't give them any French fries, that's for sure. They can have an airway obstruction. I had to treat one like that once. I had to squeeze them a little bit and give him a Heimlich maneuver, and this little French fry came out. Okay? And he went back to doing well, but I thought I killed him initially, because I had to squeeze so hard. But, I know. That's what part of veterinary medicine is all fun, because you've got all these animals to take care of. All right? So, anyway, the rat's given 20 mils per kilogram, or 10 mils per pound, per day, and they did this for 28 days. They saw no changes in cytochromes, etc., other things that are part of metabolism. And the rat doesn't live very long. And so he is a major sentinel, because he's only got a lifespan of a few months. Okay. So Kangen water, or reduced water, or pets, the summary is, many pets' diseases are associated with dehydration. The most effective hydrator, 99% of the water that we're going to give is going into cells, and because of the unique hexagonal structure and nanoclustering, there isn't anything else like it. And as a veterinary surgeon, I can say it's so important for my whole team to get hydrated, so that's why I have the water for us as well. Okay? And look at the bubbles in the water. It kind of tells you something. That's a very active particular material with the water that's a hydrogen-based gas. So it off-gases. So that's why you want to do it fresh if you can, and as fresh as possible. Because of the free electrons it carries and then donates with hydrogen gas when consumed, it's the most powerful antioxidant that we know of. Because pets have a faster metabolism than we do, and a very, again, shorter lives, they act as a sentinel for us. They will also wake up the owners to say, you better drink that stuff because I want it. Give it to me. Because they don't have the chlorine, you can smell the chlorine. They don't have that. They'll jump to the water, and they'll have a good time with it. We also, just as a quick thing about hyperbaric oxygen, you've heard about oxygenation. Well, we have some animals that are so injured, like the cells around the spinal canal have been squished, and they've been getting no oxygen during the time that dog had a disc rupture. So he's paralyzed. He can't walk. He has no ability to feel pain, so we put him in a hyperbaric chamber while our surgical team is getting ready, and we gave him some drinks of the alkaline water before he went into the chamber. So he comes out of the chamber, and there's, by the way, sometimes we get crowded, and we have to put more than one pet in the chamber at a time. Okay? All right. There's Maggie, and this is Brian's dog, and she was found on the side of the road. Brian Welsh said, "You gotta help Maggie." Well, she's got a little bit of a tumor I'm going to have to help her with in a little while. But she was just little, 3 to 4 weeks old. He found her with her eyes were kind of glued shut. She had like a septic conjunctivitis, we call that. It's an inflammation in the eyes, and she's got maggots in her area of her rectal area. So she's got a very severe maggots can be very toxic, especially when you're in and around the rectal area. So she was very sick. And Brian started her on the Kangen Water. Okay, and there's her only 8 weeks old. She's 8 weeks old, and she's our poster child for the Kangen Water. Okay, and she's an amazing cat. Brian's going to show now. We'll use this picture of her going on right now. Okay, all right. That's questions. How high can you jump? Okay? Now, if that was a grown man, it was like Brian, who was 7-some tall, he'd be jumping 42 feet up in the air. 42 feet in the air. And then there's their cat. So they are very smart, they're very agile. He rescued the little one, did a very good job with that. And I will entertain any questions. I guess it's got a couple minutes, but it's been a really pleasure for me to be here. I can share with one little thing. So I spend time in the operating room. I spend time on a fire truck. We don't ever know what we're going to be dealing with when we're either in that operating room or in that fire truck. If anybody has any questions, you can always get a hold of me. That's my email address, tcrowdvm@gmail.com. Or you can call me on my cell phone. Of course, if I'm not answering, it means I'm busy. 706-296-7020. And